coming, the sun's zooming in, meltdown expected, the wheat is good there, engines stop running, but I have no fear, 'cause London is drowning.
Hello everybody and welcome to the By the Minute Arsenal podcast. A strange yet rewarding week, which we'll get into in a second. A week of two penalties, really, which had various outcomes and for us. I am Matt H. With me is Pete. Hello, Pete.
Hello, Matt.
And we also have Matt V. Hello, Matt.
Evening. Last week we spoke about the correlation between my cold and Arsenal's success, and I just want to say, during the week, my health had a resurgence. I came back to full health, and yet I have been struck down this weekend again. So we have further proof that my health does indeed dictate Arsenal's results.
This is worrying because I got my cold, which I'm just getting over, I think, on Thursday evening, pretty much. Almost at the moment that we were playing Cologne. I don't know what this means anymore, but never mind. Let's not worry about that. Right, we've got quite a lot to get through. We've got two games to review, two to preview, and news of another spot-on prediction in the Prediction League. But we'll come to that later. So the first game, Cologne. We played Cologne in the Champions League. Champions League. In the Europa League on Thursday night. It was not a classic. Arsenal lost 1-0 to a penalty just after the hour mark. I have thinking about this. I don't think we need to talk about the game in detail because it just wasn't a particularly good game. We are not against talking about Arsenal defeats, as anyone who's listened to us over the last sort of 18 months or something will know. So we are more than happy to, well, not happy, but we will talk about Arsenal defeats when we have to. But this just seemed like such a dull game with a slightly odd outcome that I thought instead we would focus on a couple of areas. The areas I was going to talk about was sort of based on the team news. So we were told in the lead up to the game, the plan was we'd get a bit of a stronger team out for this one, win the game, top the group, and then we could play kids at home in the last game. Well, it sort of ended up not quite working out, but ultimately the outcome was the same. We have finished top of the group now, guaranteed, because of the result in the other game. It was really, the team was, with the exception of Maitland-Niles, pretty much what you might call a second string, a fringe player team or whatever, rather than there being any sort of youths involved. And my point, I suppose, or my point for discussion, I'm going to come to Matt first on this, was did any of these, let's call them fringe players, right, did any of them really take the opportunity? Because my answer to that, if I had to sort of put it into one word, would be no, and I found that a little bit disappointing.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I don't think any of them looked particularly great. Maitland-Niles had some decent moments on the left wing from what I saw, created a couple of chances. And Wilshere, once we went 1-0 down, he seemed to have a couple of bright moments where it looked like he might bring us back into the game. But overall, it was pretty disappointing, as you said. And to an extent, it might have been coming. We sort of scraped through some of the Europa League games with some very average performances and got away with it. But we couldn't bring it back this time, but as you said, the main thing is one way or another we come top of the group.
Yeah, it's interesting actually. If you, the point you make about our progression through Europa League is quite interesting. We start with two reasonably comfortable wins, and then we have a rather lucky win against Red Star, then a draw, and then a defeat. It's not trending in the right direction.
No.
But I agree on Wilshere actually. I thought he showed the odd spark, and it was disappointing for me. I think Coquelin ending up being our sort of best attacking threat for much of the game was pretty damning. Pete, any thoughts on the performance of any of these individual players or this sort of group as a whole who you could, if I'd said to you before the game, pick a team of fringe players, it's probably been pretty much the team you'd come up with, and yet they couldn't really, they didn't really do very much to force their way into the team, to use the old kind of cliche.
No, they didn't. No, as they maybe Wilshere a little bit, and I would really only say two things about the Cologne game, which was firstly, presumably Matt was feeling fully recovered by that point in time.
Yeah, exactly. That was it.
And obviously that would have had a very bad effect on us. And secondly, if you ask us to play in that hideous blue monstrosity, you'll get what you deserve, basically.
That's a very key point. I'm glad you've made them. I was just looking through my notes, such as there were, to see if there was anything else to note. did we want to discuss the penalty? Debussy's involved. Am I right in thinking he's been involved before in dodgy or otherwise penalties? I really can't remember. But Pete, any thoughts on the penalty or not?
I did actually. I thought it was a penalty. I was watching it on BT Sport and then proceeded to hear John Hartson go on at length about how it wasn't a penalty because it was just a tangle of legs. As far as I know, if you tangle with someone's legs in the penalty area, that's a penalty, isn't it? I wasn't quite sure what he meant by that, unless it's the opposition player purposely sticking their leg into yours. And I couldn't see that's what happened. It was all very odd. It looked like Debussy had caught his foot, didn't he? And
I tend to agree with you. I thought it was one of those slightly soft ones, but a penalty, nonetheless, unavoidably. So yeah, it's one of the reasons I didn't really want to go on about it, because I didn't think there was much to talk about, because it seemed to me reasonably clear if slightly sort of soft penalties give away. Matt, any thoughts on it at all, or not?
Yeah, it was just clumsy. I think it was a penalty as well. I saw a lot of people call it a dive. I don't think it was a dive at all. It was pretty clumsy from Debussy. There was contact, and then he's well entitled to go down for it. So yeah, it was a soft one to give away, but I don't think we can complain that it was given.
Okay, sounds good. Pete, I was going to come back to you with my sort of second area to cover, because, as I've alluded to, because of the result in the other game, which I can't even remember what it was now, I think it was a draw, wasn't it? But it means that we've won the group. Yeah, so we've won the group, and when we play Bate in a couple of weeks, they can play us, and it wouldn't matter, we'd still finish top. You were quite keen at the start. I mean, we all were to some extent, but I seem to remember you were the one who sort of mentioned it, this idea of having fun in this competition, and the fun I think has gone out of it the last couple of games. I just wondered if there was any way you thought, both of you, we'll start with Pete, in terms of bringing the fun back. I mean, will it be a case that if the kids perform really well against Bate, that might be a spark for us? And of course it depends on then who we get in future rounds.
I'm quite looking forward to it, because it really does mean nothing at all now, so I'm hoping we do play a bunch of kids completely. And just again have a bit of fun. Don't wear that kit, and we're at home, so we'll be all right. Yeah, I think it should hopefully. I mean, the problem is that when we go through, we'll probably start to take it seriously again anyway. So let's at least take this last opportunity to just really dismiss it out of hand. And the other thing I wanted to say was, I think probably on which day was it? Thursday. That it was the best result all round for everyone, really, because it's quite nice for Cologne to still be in. But I mean, they were absolutely thrilled at being back in Europe, as we saw with the first game. And so, I think it's quite nice that they've still got a chance to go through. And so have Red Star, and so have Bate. And it's I think it's probably in some ways losing, although maybe it's not what we wanted to see. Losing and winning the group was about the best result all round for everyone.
It's quite interesting. It's Cologne. We were not particularly good on Thursday, but Cologne were dire, I thought. They couldn't sort of string anything much together, could they? And so I'm not sure what it says about the competition that Cologne are still in with a chance. It certainly does make it interesting for the other three teams on the last day. So that there may be some vicarious sort of interest in that from us, but it's nice to be able to sit back and see what happens. Matt, any thoughts about getting the fun back into this, or is it just it's a bit of a slog, and we the group stage we just get out of the way and then see what happens?
I think it would have been fun if Coquelin had scored. I'd love to see his celebration. I think he would probably kill someone. I had a look. He's never scored for Arsenal, and he's just got one goal in his entire professional career out on loan. I watched it earlier, actually. It was from about 1.5 yards, so he doesn't have much in terms of ability going forward, but he was probably the closest we got when he hit the post. So if we get a penalty at some point in the last group game, I would love to see him take it. I think that's one way that the fun will come back.
You've done research again as well. That's 2 weeks in a row, which is showing us all. Whenever you did the research about it was last week, wasn't it? The Champions League. Done it again. The Europa League and the seeding and the people coming down from the Champions League and whatnot. So it would be. I get the feeling that he probably won't play in that last group game.
No.
So we may have to wait longer for that. But we won't worry about that now. We'll worry about that in a week or so, because it's not till December the 7th, I think. Right. Let's get rid of the nasty aftertaste of the Cologne game and move back to the Premier League. We were away at Burnley on Sunday. We have had two games against, but the last two games against Burnley have been won rather late on, rather controversial fashion, and yesterday proved to be no different. We'll come to that in a second. Fourth place was up for grabs because of the results on the Saturday, which we'll come to later on. The team was pretty much, I think, as we would have planned, apart from Ozil having to drop out late on and be replaced by Iwobi because of illness. The game itself wasn't particularly exciting, but Matt, any thoughts on the team? I mean, pretty much as we expected, I would have thought.
It was. How often is Ozil ill?
It does seem to happen a lot, doesn't it?
I think that's 3 illnesses in the past. Yeah, since January that have kept him out of some games, and they all seem to be away games up north. Something about that brings the worst in him. No, as you said, pretty much expected. Apart from that, it was good to see that defence start again that played so well against Tottenham. And I guess the only decision, apart from that, was whether to do Iwobi or Welbeck instead of Ozil. Welbeck started Europa League, so I guess Iwobi got his chance. But no, I think we can all be pretty happy with that team. And then, I mean, we'll come on to the game, but it's so good to see that defence starting together, and they look so solid. And hopefully, we can keep playing them for the next few games.
Yeah, let's move on then. So, Pete, any thoughts about the team, but more importantly, any sort of performances that you like to pick at? I mean, Mustafi's come out for quite a lot of praise in some of the press. Any thoughts on him or anything else?
Yeah, he's continued his good form, hasn't he? As have the entirety of the defence. And 2 clean sheets in a row is not to be sniffed at, is it, really, in the league? So I thought that they did very well. And individually, there wasn't much else to say really, other than Cech had another good game and was partly responsible for the clean sheet. No one else had a particularly great game, did they?
Well, it wasn't a good game, sort of all round, really, was it? First half in particular, I thought Burnley were very much the better team. Ramsey had a good chance from a Lacazette cross. I thought Lacazette looked quite useful as well. I mean, obviously he was useful, but I mean, in the particular game, he got a good cross across. Although Ramsey wasn't particularly composed, and sort of I mean, it was a quick cross into him, but he managed to fire it right over. Second half, Arsenal improved rather significantly, I thought.
Second half, we were much better. I didn't actually see this, by the way. I only heard it, and I've since watched some highlights. But certainly, the second half was a great improvement. And I don't know if it's fair to say we deserved the win, but I think probably on the second half performance, we were out of the two sides, we were the ones who deserved to get lucky.
Well, it's a good point you make about the luck, because we'll come to that now. I've interesting to note that the Arsenal website, I've noticed, doesn't really have very good stats on this kind of stuff for anyone who's interested. They don't note, for example, that Wiltshire came on. They don't note that Welbeck came on when he I'm sure I saw him. So just worth noting for people who are interested. One of my notes, I didn't have that many notes on this game. One of them is just Sanchez frustrated, which I'm not really sure why I did a note on that, because I'm sure I could have that in pretty much any game, and it would be the case. Matt, any thoughts? Well, let's go straight to it, actually. Let's not mess around. The penalty. So we're into whatever minute we're past the 90 minutes, aren't we, when it happens? Ramsey down in the box after a push. Now, again, I think this is a soft penalty, but I think it's a penalty for what it's worth. Matt, what do you think?
Well, first of all, I don't know how there were 2 minutes added time, because their keeper alone must have waited about 4 when it came to goal kicks. That was one best pleased when that happened. In terms of the penalty, I think it is soft. I think it probably is just about a foul. I don't think there was any need to do it, because I don't think Ramsey was going to get to that ball ever.
No.
But the defender gave him a chance to go down. He did. And Liam Mason, who I don't think had a great game, he seemed pretty weak and some questionable decisions, did the ballsy call in front of the Burnley fans and gave us a penalty, which, I think a draw would have been fair. But I'm not going to complain, and I'm not going to say it was a dive. If it was the other way around, I might be a bit aggrieved, but no, I think it probably just about was a penalty.
I was getting the thought of it being a draw, whilst that would have been a fair result, would have been very frustrating given what had happened to the other teams the previous day, and particularly building on the Derby win from last week, and particularly, I suppose, to a slightly smaller degree after the relatively disappointing performance in Cologne. Penalty it was. Pete, have you seen the penalty incident?
I have, yes, and I do think it was a penalty. He shoved him. There you go. Tough luck. The referee gave the penalty. He probably should have given a penalty against I can't remember who it was, but on Bellerin. Yeah, on about I don't know, 70 minutes or something like that.
Yes, I can't remember who it was on either, but yeah, Bellerin was the recipient, as it were.
But I've decided the better way to think about penalties anyway is whether they're good or bad, or good decisions or soft decisions or whatever. You've got to score them. And actually looking at that, at the time that it was given, I sat there thinking, oh God, who's going to take this? Lacazette was off the pitch, and Alexis was the chosen one, and we know that he's missed them in the past, but he put it away. And that I think he gets man of the match for that alone. Because
he does.
A heck of a lot of pressure to be under in the very last minute of the game, particularly if you think the penalty award is soft, and he's managed to score it and win us the game. So it's deserved from that point of view that the guy who took the penalty scored it.
It did, although I'm glad I knew he scored before I watched the replays, as it were, because it only just sneaks in the corner. It's very the keeper is very close to it. It's one of those ones you watch the replay and you're still not quite sure that it's going to go in because of how close the keeper got. But as you say, it doesn't matter. In it went, and we stole the 3 points, which is a very nice feeling. And in a battle that was ultimately for the top 4 spot, we prevailed, and we are now in the top 4, and we've qualified into the next round as winners in the Europa League this week. So it's, from what was a sort of odd week with a couple of underwhelming performances, should we say, we've ended up doing rather well out of it, which is a little bit of luck involved there, but let's enjoy it. Matt, any thoughts more on this particular game, or should we be pleased about the mental spirit, as I'm sure Arsene must have said a number of times at some point yesterday?
I didn't have enough mental spirit to trust my stream with the penalty. I was straight on Twitter to see what happened.
Oh, really?
I didn't trust my heart to wait out to see if he scored. That's pretty weak looking back. I probably should have gone with it. But and also, Lacazette being taken off again. I don't know what scenario there is that we're now going to keep him on, because you'd think it would be logical to keep him on when we do need a goal. But we didn't do that. And we haven't kept him on when we're winning. I don't know if Wenger still doesn't think he's fully fit enough to do 90 minutes, but at some point it would be nice to see him to play a full game. But I don't think we suffered that much. Welbeck was a similar enough player, the pace in behind. But at some point I think it would be nice to see him get a full game.
It's an interesting point. You spend that kind of money, and he doesn't look like he's incapable. That's the other point. He doesn't look like he's not, the kind of person who could do that. So it does seem a bit odd. It was interesting. I was a bit different. I had my stream, but I had my phone sort of turned over, so I couldn't see what came up, because obviously the phone ends up a little bit quicker than the stream.
Braver than me, stronger.
Well, well, I don't know, because then it beeped. But because of the time, I didn't know if that was end of play, final whistle, or if it was going to be a goal. And of course, if it was a goal, I didn't know which end it was going to be. So when we then got awarded the penalty, I sort of knew we were going to score. But even then, I wasn't that comfortable watching it, only just nestle in the corner. Pete, anything else to say about this game, or should we move on?
Just one very serious point.
Okay.
Glove count.
Oh, there were plenty.
Well, it wasn't too bad. There were 2 Arsenal glove wearers, and there was 1 Burnley glove wearer.
Oh, I think I'm thinking of the Liverpool-Chelsea game when I noted more gloves. But you did actually count the gloves. I assume you mean pairs of gloves as well, just to be clear.
Pairs of gloves. Mr. Defour was the Burnley offender, and Mr. Sanchez and Mr. Lacazette were the Arsenal offenders. So we lost 2-1 on glove count.
Well, fortunately, we don't care about that too much, but it's very interesting. I'm sorry. I mean, we don't care in terms of league positioning, but
no.
obviously we care deeply. It's very interesting to know that kind of stuff. All right. Well, we'll move things along because we have some games to preview. we've alluded to what happened in the league. I mean, the main things happened in the league over the weekend that have helped Arsenal were draws for Spurs at home to West Brom, and Liverpool and Chelsea taking points off each other at Anfield. Man City won. A little bit harder for them than normal yesterday, but it all meant that we snuck into the top four. Man United also won. Again, only 1-0 for them. And we'll talk more about United in a second, because it's time to look at our the next games. Oh, I will just note, City are now on 37 points, a long way ahead, of course. United are on 29, Chelsea 26, us 25, and then Tottenham in 5th on 24. Let's look at the fixtures then. Time for a discussion about the next couple of games we have this week. Oh, first of all, of course, Prediction League. Let me do that first. Well, we'll do it quickly. None of us got any points for the Cologne game because we didn't have Arsenal losing. And we all got points to one degree or another for the Burnley game, but Matt takes the plaudits with another maximum for getting the score exactly right.
Never in doubt. Never in doubt.
Exactly. Right, 2 league games this week, both at home. A really good chance, really, for us to build on the 2 recent wins against Spurs and Burnley. It would be lovely if we could get some wins here. I've already put my predictions in the old spreadsheet, but I will hear from one of you first. Let's discuss Huddersfield first. It's on Wednesday night at the Emirates, 7:45. Let's go to Pete first. Pete, brief thoughts on this and a prediction, please.
Brief thoughts. Quite worried after having watched them play Man City. I'm hoping they will be shattered after that, and also not so good away from home, because they really deserve something out of that game. And a bit worrying, but well, it's going to be interesting to see how we approach it, isn't it? Whether we look towards the Man U game and do a bit of rotation, or whether we do what I would rather do, which is just play our best team and try and win the next game that we've got. We're in a good position in the league. We're now only 4 points behind Man U. I think we should be doing our very best to win this game and worry about Saturday later. But I suspect we may not do, and that we'll probably try a little bit of tinkering here and there to give some people a rest before Saturday. So for that reason, I'm not so confident about it. And I think Huddersfield, as I say, look very good on Saturday, and I suspect we're not going to have another clean sheet. So I'm going to go for yet another 2-1, which seems to be my regular prediction. That's 2-1 Arsenal.
No, you've had a few 2-1s, certainly. I can
prediction, and one day it's going to come true.
one day, yes, it hasn't worked for you yet, but absolutely 2-1 for you. Okay, Matt, thoughts and a prediction.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what kind of team we go for. Wenger's already said Ozil is still ill, so he won't be playing.
How do you know now that he's still going to be ill in 2 days' time?
It's an early diagnosis.
Okay, fair enough.
I suspect he'll make a miraculous recovery for the weekend, but I hope we keep the defence together. They're building some good momentum. If there aren't going to be changes, maybe Ramsey sits out. He seems to play Sanchez, doesn't really rest him. So I think it'll still be a strong team, and I think Huddersfield won't be as good away as they are at home. So I will go for a hugely optimistic 3-0 Arsenal.
3-0, okay, very good. I've got 3-1. I did have 2-0, but then I realised I've done 2-0 for the last 2 games, and indeed for quite a lot of games looking at it. Sorry, no.
It's now going to be 2-0.
I suppose I was impressed by Huddersfield yesterday myself. I completely take the point, however, about them being better at home than away, probably, or a different proposition, should we say. The team we're going to play, given it's another game, this sort of a 3-league game week, as it were, is an interesting one. I hadn't really thought about it. I assumed we'd stick with basically the first 11 we had on Sunday, particularly as Ozil is apparently going to be out already. I don't know why I've gone for 3-1 particularly. Given our defence looks pretty strong, I'm not sure why I've suggested they might score, but maybe a little bit of tiredness, a little bit of complacency, maybe. So that's why I've gone for 3-1. So that's my prediction for Wednesday. Okay. Then, with all due respect to Huddersfield, the biggest game of the week comes on Saturday, 5:30, at home to Man United. Well, let's start with Matt for this one. Matt, what do you think?
It's pretty tough. I think United don't look anywhere near as strong as they did earlier in the season. Scraped past Brighton this weekend, and I don't think they have as much confidence as they did before. Lukaku isn't scoring as much. Pogba's only just come back. I think it's not a bad time to play them. And our home form we've been really good at home. I think it's going to be a completely boring game, and I will go 0-0. That's 4 clean sheets in a row. This seems unlikely. I'll stick with 0-0.
So 0-0 for you there. Pete, what do you think? Are you going to be at this one?
I am going to be at this one. And I was going to say 0-0 as well, but I can't bring myself to predict a draw against Man U, particularly not dull a one as that. And I know it probably will be, but there you go. Do you know what? I'm going to stick with my 2-1s.
Really? Stick with it again?
Yeah, why not?
Well, why not?
Come on.
2-1. I think 2-1's a perfectly reasonable shout. I've gone for 1-0. And we're all going at the slightly sort of boring side, aren't we, of things? A win's a win, and that would be a delight, and I wouldn't really care how we got it. I think Matt is absolutely right. United don't seem to be quite the same proposition now that they were at the start of the season. I think if you'd asked me this a couple of weeks ago, I probably would have been more negative, just because I didn't think the team were playing particularly well. Just after the City game, for example, or even the Watford game, that kind of thing. That kind of period, I wouldn't have been particularly confident. But I'm fatally getting a little bit of optimism at the moment, which obviously will be beaten out of me soon at some point. But
in the league.
Well, I can't see this being particularly exciting, and I think I don't know if those kind of games suit us.
Yeah, but they've been boring all season, but they're still second in the league.
United, well, yes, this is true, they are, but I don't know. I think we should be winning these home games.
They're irritatingly dull and efficient.
Well, they are. I hope we can just be a bit more efficient, perhaps. I don't know. I'm going to stick with the 1-0 now. I've said it, and I will take great delight in that. I think we can. I don't think winning is the issue. I must be honest. I think we can win. I think we can win. Put it that way. I'm having trouble thinking of the margin, and I keep coming back to that fairly narrow, fairly dull kind of scoreline. Although of course it's not dull if we win. That's the bottom line. I think the game might be quite dull, but if we win, then so be it. Sorry, I'm essentially suggesting your Saturday evening is going to be really quite dull, but then we're all going to be watching it one way or another. So we're all in the same boat. All right then. Well, great. Well, unless anyone's got anything else to add, I think we can wrap things up there. So thank you very much for your company, Pete.
Thank you, Matt. It's been a pleasure as ever.
Oh, that's very kind of you to say so. And thank you very much, Matt.
Thank you very much.
And thank you everyone for listening. And we'll be back next week to discuss the Huddersfield and Man United games and look ahead to Bate, and we can try and guess what team's going to be put out then. But until then, have a great week, and we'll speak to you then. Take care. Bye-bye.